Hey there, you're listening to Not Another TV Podcast. This is episode 54, the week of August 2nd, 2024. My name is Drew Cunning. With me, as always, my co-host, Mads Sassy. Mads, how are we doing?
I'm good. I have a cat in my lap, and it's very comforting. Listen, you never know what I'm going to say when I say I'm good. So.
That's true. It is a constant surprise.
I like to keep you on your toes.
It is because we're talking about Dimension 20 again this week. Every time that I ask you how you are, it does feel like we're rolling for like wild magic, where it's like anything could happen.
Actually, I do roll a 20. I do roll a 20 dice, every time, just to see what my answer is going to be. How will it go? Who knows?
You just have like a paper in front of you, and every number corresponds to a different response.
Exactly. That's how I get involved.
Wow, we are starting off on a strong note.
Indeed.
Full nonsense right at the top.
We don't have a whole lot TV to talk about, so we might as well be a little outlandish at the start.
That is true. It is going to be a short week, which will hopefully correspond to the runtime of this podcast. Who's to say? But, so some good stuff. We're kind of in a lull. There's always that point. I mean, it was worse years ago, but it's still true now. That lull between like late July, mid to late July till like late August, where it's like, oh, we got nothing.
We are in the hiatus, no man's land.
It used to be a lot worse because every May TV took off and didn't come back up till like the fall season.
Right, and so like June to beginning of September was like reruns and stuff.
Right. Like that's why Empire was such a big deal, like 10 years ago. What was it?
It was
like
another summer show that was like really big.
It was Empire and Unreal.
Yeah.
The Lifetime fake Big Brother show.
I also feel like Preacher got a lot of attention because it was also a summer show. And so people were like, oh, AMC, there's something good on. Like,
right.
Because I truly don't believe Preacher would have gone on as long as it did if there had been other things to watch. Not because it wasn't good, just because I feel like people wouldn't have paid as much attention or seen it as much. It is good. It's one of my favorites.
Like, summer has always been the point where, like, some cable networks have kind of thrived. So, like, USA and some AMC and, like, sci-fi shows. I think that's part of the reason why, like, Wynonna Earp was such a success, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of other sci-fi series was because it was like, oh, it's the summer and nothing else is really happening. So it really, like, flourished in that. But that is to say, we're kind of like doing it live over here. Shows that we can cover. But thankfully, once we get into like the end of August, we start like picking back up, start going again. So it's kind of bear with us until we get out of like the bad stretch of summer. Let's talk about some brief news. There was some stuff coming out of Comic-Con, but like not a lot. It was more TV film stuff that came out of Comic-Con this week. But there was still a couple good stuff. The first is that we got our first look at the Wynonna Earp TV movie that's coming, or TV special is coming, and I am very excited for it. It's supposed to be coming sometime in the fall, like probably like late fall to early winter, which is actually very fitting because Wynonna Earp was like always. It was the funny thing about it being a summer show where it's like, oh, it's so cold. It looks so cold. It was a show that like always worked in like very wintry climates, like very winter Canada. But I'm very excited for this. Did you get a chance to watch that trailer?
I did not. I chose not to because that is another show that is on my need to watch list.
Right.
So I was like, I don't really want to watch this trailer because I will not know what's going on. But I see all the hype around it. I'm happy for those of you that have watched Wynonna Earp. I do plan on watching it before the end of this year. We'll see if that ends up happening.
Mm-hmm.
Because I do love Tim Rosen so much, and I know that I'm gonna love this show. But I'm happy for all you folks that have watched it and are very excited for this.
It looks extremely dope. I kind of hope that I heard was like, if enough people watch this, then maybe it could convince Tubi to have more Wynonna Earp down the road,
Mm-hmm.
which I would most certainly be game for.
Yeah. I did see an interview with Tim Rosen where they asked him if his character from Schitt's Creek and his character from Wynonna Earp would be friends, and he was like, "Yes, they both live in a barn, and they both like to take their shirt off a lot, and they both have facial hair, so I think they'd have a few things to talk about."
That is true.
I was just like, "Sir, that is the most random answer to that question." Like, yes, these are three things that they have in common, and that would definitely make a friendship. I just love Tim Rosen because he's so sweet and he's so genuine, but he's also got very little thoughts going on in his head.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I saw him at ATX with some of the other Wynonna Earp people a few years ago, and there's just nothing happening.
Yeah, I met him at Fan Expo Philly a couple years ago, and I was just like going on about some things, and he was just like, "Uh huh, yeah," and I was just like, "You have no idea what I'm talking about." Okay, cool.
Nothing. No. Did you see the interview with the vampire trailer or like sneak peek?
Um, Abso-freaking-lutely. The little teaser, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I did. Did I watch it again for like 10 more times? Abso-freaking-lutely, I did. I'm obsessed.
It's insane.
Have you heard the song?
I have not heard the song.
Oh, they released a audio file of a song, I guess, for next season, and I'm just like, oh my god, this is hilarious. Like, so camp, but also like, it's going to make the show so great. Like, I'm here for it. I am so here for it. Rockstar Lestat, yes, here for
Yes,
it. I'm sad
that's gonna be great.
because my friend who's read the books was like, no, but the Vampire Lestat book was so camp. Like, they're going to go all out in this season, and I'm like, I'm here for it. Give it to me. I love camp. Camp is fun.
Mm-hmm.
This show yields itself very well to doing camp and still keeping to the essence of the show. So like, we're good. We got
We're good.
this.
It's great.
Also, now there are people that are shipping Lestat Daniel so much more harder, and I'm okay with that. Listen, as you and I said in chat this week, we have shipped for things less. We ship for
Oh
the
yeah.
smallest little inclination of someone looking their way.
Oh yeah. We have shipped harder for less. Absolutely.
Exactly. And I'm like, you know what? Good for you, you Daniel Lestat shippers. Like, good for you. You see Lestat choking Daniel in a teaser trailer, and you're like, absolutely, that is love.
Absolutely. This is my vibe. Speaking of shipping more for less, HBO, we have to have a talk because what is happening over there? So, for those of you who don't know, the second season finale of House of the Dragon was leaked onto the internet. And for a little background here, HBO used to be far more lenient with screeners than they currently are until people started leaking. And HBO put a stop to screeners by and large for people. And so after doing that, when you're still getting leaked, what's happening? What's the security like? Is it just three children in a trench coat? Like, what's happening?
Honestly, when I became an editor for Telltale, I had to apply for all these different like access logins for different press sites. And Ashley said to me, she was like, Warner Brothers, HBO might be a little difficult to get. They're a little more restricted on, you know, who they give out to. She goes, Hulu is probably never going to happen. She goes, I'm one of the only people that has Hulu. She's like, but, you know, HBO is also up there. And I was like, okay, cool. I ended up getting HBO credentials. And I was just like, okay, I don't know what I did, but okay. And then I got screeners for our flag, and I was like, I don't know what I did, but okay. They were probably like, oh, you seem unassuming. And I'm like, oh, you thought. No, I would never give out screeners. No, I don't do that.
But like, particularly the Game of Thrones screeners were very hard to come
down
by.
the hatches.
So, what kind of heist are you being subjected to, HBO, where your finale is still being leaked out there? It's out there right now. The last piece of news that I think we want to briefly touch on is that Sam Esmail's reboot of Battlestar Galactica is dead at Peacock. Listen, I'm not happy about this necessarily, but I'm certainly not sad about it.
You're also not unhappy.
Yeah, I'm not unhappy about it. By any stretch of the imagination. We did it. We already did Battlestar Galactica. We don't need to do it again. I'm good. It still exists. We can just go watch it. And it was great. No thank you. And I guess now I don't have to say no thank you, because it's dead. We killed it.
It's just dead.
It's
just dead in the water.
Well, let's move on to the GOAT. So the GOAT is a weekly segment we do here on the podcast where myself and Mads nominate a best TV character or episode of all time and pit them against each other on a poll on Twitter, Instagram, and Tumblr. So our last GOAT that we've done, we definitely know the results of, are Dr. Cox from Scrubs going up against Boy Meets World and Affair to Forget. And An Affair to Forget won. With that 1 point up for Mads. To continue on into our current week of the GOAT, to refresh, our theme for this week was in honor of the passing of Shannon Doherty. We're doing a episode that she appeared in or a character that she played. So since I lost that last GOAT, I am going to go first here with my pick for the GOAT. There was a lot of stuff that we could pick from, because Shannon Doherty was kind of in a lot of TV shows over the last 30 years. You know, so you had Charmed and Little House on the Prairie and all of the 90210s. There were like 3 of them, and Shannon Doherty appeared for all of them. And also a weird, like, a Robert Kennedy, not Robert Kennedy.
Yeah, Robert Kennedy. She did. There was like a mini series about Robert Kennedy. Okay. She played one of the sisters. Okay. Yeah, it was one of the. She played one of the sisters.
This is the Kennedys fuck me up, because then I'll go like Robert Kennedy, not the other Kennedy, not the other Robert Kennedy, that Robert Kennedy. There's so many Kennedys.
I know what you're saying. My weird like flex is that I probably know every known fact about the Kennedy family that you could think of. So yeah, anytime Karen asks me like a simple yes or no question, I end up going into a little like tangent about what I do know. It was about Robert Kennedy, and yes, I saw
Okay, yeah. No, I saw that on her credits today, and I was like, oh, she played Kathleen Kennedy, not that Kathleen Kennedy. A different Kathleen Kennedy. Got it. But yeah, so I had a lot to choose from, and even just from Charmed, which was one of her longest running series. She was probably on more episodes of 90210 per capita, but with Charmed, there was a lot to choose from just in there. And I watched a bunch of Charmed episodes this week to kind of prepare for this. It was really interesting for me to like really hone in on the fact that like Shannon Doherty was so much of like the straight man on this show, where like in contrast, like Holly Marie Combs and Alyssa Milano got to give like really big, exuberant performances every week. Doherty kind of had to like be very toned down. She had to, like I said, be the straight man. She had to be very flat in a lot of cases. And it is the episodes where like she gets to be a little bigger that you're like, oh, this was like a conscious choice by like her and the writing. which brings me to my pick, which is Charmed Season 2, Episode 9, Ms. Hellfire, which is an episode that is set on Friday the 13th, where canonically weird shit goes down. And for this episode, a hit woman who goes by the moniker Ms. Hellfire opens fire in the house tries to kill Peru, Piper, and Phoebe, and just an outlandish display of gunfire and bullets, and which leads to them A, killing this woman, and then B, Prue acquiring her identity and going undercover to try to figure out who is trying to kill them. And it allows Prue and Shannon Doherty, by extension, to give like this really big, kind of larger than life, very sexy, scantily clad, very like femme fatale kind of performance that is just so much fun when contrasted with like how mellowed out Doherty is like throughout most of the show. So it is so much fun, and it is really good like chemistry work between her and like this guy that she's this criminal that she's trying to fool, Bane, who like they just have such like crackling sexual chemistry throughout this episode. And Doherty just has like looks after looks that are just like all time for Charmed, which had like a lot of some weird fashion choices, but a lot of times very solid and very, very aesthetic. And it's an episode that allows Doherty to like have a lot of fun, where like she is not was not normally able to like have this level. So yeah, that is my pick for this week. Charmed Season 2, Episode 9, Ms. Hellfire.
Nice. So my pick this week it's a bit of a deep cut. I mean, you mentioned it when you talked about her, like, credits and things like that, but it's a deep cut in the sense that I don't feel like as many people probably saw it. And it was one of her earlier works, and I'm talking about Jenny Wilder from Little House on the Prairie. I remember it watching Little House on the Prairie with my grandparents when I was younger. So I saw random episodes here and there. But then, like, I went back and watched it in reruns on TV when I was older, because it comes on late at night a lot. And there's just something about her talent, even as a child actress. I think she was like 11 or 12 on the show at the time. And she just exudes a confidence that I don't see very often in child actors. And she made that character feel more important, because I feel like she was, I mean, it was only like the final season that she was in, and she played the niece of Laura and her husband, I forget his name, who they like take in when her father dies. But yeah, there's just something about that role that really just like stuck with me. And like I remembered her vaguely from when I was a kid, watching it very casually with my grandparents, before I was like super into television. And then going back when I was older, and I was like, oh, that face looks familiar. And then like looking it up and realizing it was Shannon Doherty. I just think that it was a precursor to what she would go on to do in her other roles. And it just showed that we lost a very big talent when she passed away, because she, from a young age, was able to really captivate us and make us care about a character, no matter how small in the grand scope of a TV show they were, or how important they were to the show. Like it didn't matter whether it was a small character or a large character. She really just changed how we saw television. And so yeah, Jenny Wilder, just a child character, doesn't really do much in the grand scheme of the story of Little House on the Prairie, but she was there through all of season 9. And she, is dealing with grief. And so like there's some like very big emotions that Shannon had to portray in this character. that I felt like she really nailed, and made us really feel like we understood everything Jenny was going through, from losing her father to feeling like she was alone in the world, and then realizing she did have family and a support system and people who loved her. And so, yeah, that's why I chose Jenny Wilder from Little House on the Prairie.
Nice. You can go vote for both of these on Twitter and Instagram and Tumblr, where the poll will be up for 2 days. And be sure to like and share it on whatever social platform you are currently using. Next week, our theme is going to be in honor of the 10-year anniversary of Outlander premiering. We will be talking about time travel. So, time travel centric stories or time travelers. And if you have any suggestions, send them into our email at noneofthetvpodcast@gmail.com or any of our social media accounts. And without anything else, let's move on into the main part of our show. Wake up to the sounds of the silence that allows for my mind to run around with my ear up to the ground. I'm searching to behold the stories that I told when my back is to the world that was smiling when I turned. Tell you you're the greatest, but once you turn, they hate us. So our first show for this week is us catching up a little bit with the recommendation from our redemption round from the GOAT, where I made Mads watch Arcane, which will have a second season coming in November on Netflix.
Which I need it to come out now because...
Yes. Oh, imagine how the rest of us feel.
Yeah, you guys discovered this show when it came out. Like, I'm just now watching it. You know, you gave me a month and I took 6 weeks, which I appreciate you being very kind to me and letting me do that. But you're right, those first 2 episodes were just kind of like blah. I was just like, okay, I get it. We're getting introduced to these characters. These 2 sisters are probably very important. I did not expect them to end up on opposite sides of what was going on. Mm-hmm. I truly did not. Like, watching those first 2 episodes, I'm like, oh, they have this really strong bond. They're going to be fighting together against the world. No.
Well, yeah, like I was telling you this off mic, but like the first 3 episodes are so much like, you know, it's kind of the Netflix thing of like, oh, you have to give it like 3 episodes before it really starts going. But you do have to give it 3 episodes before it really starts going, because the first 3 episodes are just like setting a mood and introducing you to characters, and it's so much of just like, here's a prologue to the actual show.
Right.
So like that first act is just like getting you acquainted, giving you the information, and then, you know, episodes
putting the players on the board.
Yeah, episodes 4 through 9 are like, here's the show.
Yeah, and 4 through 9 like go from 0 to 60. Like, it's insane. Like, so good, but insane. I was like, you know, okay, we're setting the pace, we're setting the tone, and then we get to like episode 4 and it's like, bam, shit's happening. And I'm like, oh no, this is gonna go a little faster. Okay, cool. Diving right in. Who do I care about? Like, you know what I mean? So like I started to be like, all right, what are the characters I care about? But like by episode 4, a few of them had slightly changed because they'd gotten older and their paths had been reformed, you know, from the events of the first couple episodes. And I was just like, oh, okay. And I said to you off mic, I actually think I messaged this to you. I was like, I'm really liking Vi and Caitlin. Do we ship them? And this is where that whole conversation of we've shipped harder for less came about. Yes. Because you were like, well, we've shipped harder for less, so.
Right, no.
But yeah, I'm obsessed with those 2. Like, they have such good chemistry.
Like and I think I sent you this in our chat of like the scene of Vi and Caitlin in the brothel, and
yes.
Vi like pinning her against the wall and being like, "You're hot." Like, you don't have that scene if you're not trying to illustrate a certain level of gayness. Like, I even heard like the writers had this conversation of like, should we have this scene in here or not? And they were like, we do because we have to demonstrate that these two are gay, like that Vi is gay or on a spectrum of some
Yes.
kind, and these two are attracted to each other, which plays through so nicely. Just like the design of the characters, how they fit together, and like the voice performance of Haley Steinfeld. Oh, and I'm blanking on the who voices Caitlin, but it's just so good. It works so well together, uh, and like their dynamic is just so good.
You know what I didn't realize is that the voice of Caitlin is Katie Leung, and she was in the Harry Potter series.
Oh, right.
I know her from that. And I was just like, oh, I didn't realize that's who that was. After watching this, I also really, I did say I do really like Jinx, but I also really love Jace and Echo. Like though, like there's just so many characters that I'm just like, I want to know what each of you are doing, and I'm kind of grateful that the show gives equal focus to these different smaller groups of people.
Mm,
Because you get to see all the characters you like, right? You get to spend
right.
time with each of these characters and get to know them, and I really appreciate that. I was nervous about that when I saw that it was only 9 episodes. I was like, "There's no way you're gonna get what you need from each of the characters," but you kind of do, and I like that.
I kind of hate Jace. Just on a visceral level, I hate that
That's
man.
fair. That's totally fair. I like him in a I think he's animatedly slightly attractive kind of way, and I find that interesting and intriguing. But like I wouldn't say I love him. I really like him. He's in like so he's like in the middle. You got love, you got hate. I'm in the middle. I like him. I enjoy seeing him on screen. I'm not sure if I will ever say I love him, but I do really like him.
Right.
But Echo, I love. I love Echo. I
Oh,
love
Echo's
Jinx.
great.
I love Vi. I love Caitlyn.
Yeah, and a lot of the just like the voice performances in this are just so good. Like Kevin Alejandro, an actor who I'm never going to like in things. Like every character he plays, I'm just like I fucking hate. Like his character on Lucifer, and like I'm
Yeah.
watching Arrow season 2 right now, and it's like I
He just
hate you.
plays, he has a face that is not very likable. He does not have a likable face. And I've realized this. I was like, sometimes I judge characters based on how their facial expressions are and how their face looks. And I'm like, it sucks when you have a shitty looking face because I'm going to automatically be like, I don't like you. Um, but like, not to make it about looks, but like, that's what I think about Kevin Alejandro. I was like, you have a face that makes me want to punch you, which was made it really funny when I found out that he voiced Jace. I was like, wait a minute.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. And like Harry Lloyd as Victor, I think it's a great that's a great character. Harry Lloyd,
Yeah.
from like Game of Thrones as like Viserys, like just what a punchable man, but like just such a great performance.
Yeah.
Like particularly like that scene with Victor and Jace on the bridge, and Jace is like freaking out about the like what do they call them? Like the Undersiders or something. And Victor just has like that simple line of like "I'm from there" with like just such derision.
I think maybe that's why I like Jace a little bit because I like the dynamic between him and Victor. Like it's just fun.
Oh yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah, the voice acting is phenomenal. Jason Spisek, who does Silco, really makes you hate that character, and but like also feel very intrigued and intimidated and like actually kind of like him. Like it's one of those weird things where like you hate that character but you also like that character because he brings a lot of fun to the story.
right. Yes,
And so like
absolutely.
yeah, that's how I feel about Silco. I'm like love to hate you, bro.
And I love Mel, even though she is the very embodiment of gaslight, gatekeep, like, just a master manipulator. and like everything she does. But like that performance by Tax Alagande, who was in our this week's episode of Adventure Time, and when I heard that voice, I was like, I don't trust you. And when I went back, I was like, oh, that's Val. Right, that's why I don't trust you.
Exactly.
Just a tremendous voice, tremendous.
Yeah.
And then of course like Ella Purnell as Jinx, who and I think I think I messaged this to you of like wherever Ella Purnell goes, so goes my kingdom. Like something like she might be my favorite performer right now of like everything she's in. I'm just like kind of there for it between like this and Yellow Jackets and Fallout.
Oh yeah, she was in Fallout. I was like, why am I remembering this name? And then, Fallout. That's why.
Yeah, and Star Trek Prodigy. Like it's just across the board. I love her stuff. It's just so good, and her her derangement as Jinx.
Dude, I would lay down my life for Jinx. I don't care what anybody says. I love Jinx.
Oh, I love Jinx so much. Her fight scene with Echo.
Oh.
In like episode like 6 or 7 is
it was
phenomenal.
So good.
Like just the look of that scene.
Like the fight itself, but also like there's the emotional heartbreak level within it that you're just like, this is just so hard to watch, but also this is so epic.
Yes. Yeah.
All right, you've sold me. I liked this.
Yeah.
The verdict is I liked this.
Yeah.
And we get to the 9th episode, and we get to that moment of like, okay, something great is gonna happen, but then it like, I need the next season. Like, what is that ending?
I have been waiting for like a year and a half for this next season to come. I keep thinking about the final scene, and it's like some people have to survive that because the show cannot just wipe the board of its characters every 5 episodes or whatever.
Oh yeah, no. You can't get rid of everybody. That just doesn't work.
You've already done this once. Okay, you can't do it twice.
Right. So this was released in November of 21.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's 3 years. Jesus.
And now we're getting it. So it'll be 3 years between seasons.
Oh, I've waited 2.5 years then. Oh my god.
Yeah, because Netflix likes to do that.
Right. Well, in fairness to Netflix and the animators, they were working on this for like 5 years.
Oh yeah, no.
And it shows because it is gorgeous. It is some of the most beautiful animation I think I've ever seen. Every shot looks like you could print it out and have it like as a poster, and it would just be breathtaking. Like so much of it feels like meticulously designed and animated. There's so much texture. It is just breathtakingly beautiful.
Yeah, so well done.
I'm so excited for season 2.
Curse you. I don't need more things to care about, Drew. I don't need more gay characters to ship, Drew. I mean, yes, I do.
Yes, you do. But Kate,
I love how I was like, is it weird that I ship this? And you're like, I was like, I don't know if I'm the only one that ships this. And then like you sent me a screenshot from AO3 and you were like, I think it's safe to say other people ship this.
I think it's fine.
Because there were like 6,000 fics.
Yeah. It's okay.
I mean, I shouldn't have doubted the ability of people to find something in that, because I mean, there are fics out there for characters that have never met each other.
Right. Well, and to be fair, they basically break up in episode 8. You know? Like, they basically have their breakup scene.
They do.
So,
I mean, exactly, because Vi doesn't choose her, and she's like, I can't deal with that. Bye.
But anyway, season 2, come here quickly. I can't wait. I really do hope they break it up like they did with season 1, where like 3 episodes, wait a couple weeks, 3 more episodes, wait a couple weeks, 3 more episodes, because like that was really great.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Let's move on to Adventure Time Distant Lands, episode 4, Wizard City. So I
Yeah.
think this is the weakest of the bunch. Actually, no. Without a doubt, it's the weakest of the bunch.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just
It was okay.
aggressively okay. Yeah.
It just will I watch it again? Probably not.
No.
I was like, I felt like this one was pulling a bit too much from certain like pop culture like reference type stuff, and I was just like, I don't know if I like this because I felt like it wasn't unique to Adventure Time. I don't know,
No.
maybe it's just me.
Like a lot of the elements are stuff that has been brought up on Adventure Time before, and like Wizard City and a lot of the other wizards, and I think this like magic school is unique to Adventure Time, but I don't think it does anything like really interesting with it, and it doesn't really do
Yeah.
anything like Peppermint Butler in an interesting way that really pushes that character forward or like gives you a sense. So it's very okay.
Like I was not like I didn't care enough about any of these new characters that I cared what happened to them. So I felt like the stakes just wasn't really there because I was just like, okay, whatever. That's you're going to have that happen to you. Okay, that's fine. It just was very I'm here to watch this. I'm not invested. And I felt kind of sad that I wasn't invested.
Yeah. Well, like this is one that I hadn't even watched before. Like I didn't watch this one when it came out, so like I didn't even know what this one was. So yeah, I wasn't really impressed with it.
Yeah.
And I feel like that was kind of the reception when this came out too. Of like this is very lesser Adventure Time.
I wonder why. Just kidding. No, I could see this not being well received in the fandom either, like when it came out. Cause like, I don't know. I just feel like Peppermint Butler is nice as a character, but like you can't really do much with him. So to make a whole episode centered on him slash lore surrounding him seems a bit of a stretch, and I think that's probably why this episode just feels like not all there.
Right. Well, especially when you devote so much of it to Peppermint Butler is bad and you shouldn't become him. you know? And you're like,
Right.
that feels at odds with the show I've been watching, quite honestly. It's like, we like Peppermint Butler. The idea that Peppermint Butler is this supremely, he's this like evil dark sorcerer, and like, he's a dark sorcerer, but like, to the amount that he's like a monster, is like, that feels uneven. A little unearned, honestly.
That, and I also felt like the professors just were, I don't know, I just wasn't as invested. And I felt like they were trying to make it seem like this big shock or whatever that one of the professors is a very much loves Peppermint Butler and like wants to follow in his evil footsteps or whatever. And I was just like, I wasn't that shocked because I wasn't invested.
Well, like Caledonius is obviously, like she's obviously not on the level, and like
No.
of course, like I said, like that voice performance helps. Of like, oh, that's just Mel from Arcane, so it's like, no, I don't trust that person. But also, like, come on.
Like
I demand some
like
credit.
from the moment we meet her, she seems way too nice. That's not real.
No.
And very much we should give him a chance, and it's like, oh, well, why? Because he really did fuck things up. Like, why would you give him a chance? And I'm just like, you're too nice. I don't trust it.
No.
Also, she slightly reminded me of Professor Trelawney from Harry Potter, who's not necessarily a bad person, but she's very like flighty and very mentally unstable, that I'm like, I wouldn't trust that kind of character anyway.
No.
So then you have this character show up that's similar in vibe to her, and I'm just like, yeah, no.
Yeah,
But
this whole special feels like a really absurd way to to close out this miniseries. It's like it could.
yeah.
I feel like you could have shoved this into the middle or something, and have this
Yeah.
not be the note we're leaving it on. Yeah,
Like,
I don't feel like there's
how
a
did
whole lot
they
more to say
decide
than
the
this.
order? How did they decide the order of these episodes? Like,
I don't
because I'm
know.
like, this one would have been fine as like 2 or 3. Like, you know what I mean?
No, like Finn feels like the one to leave this. Finn and Jake feels like the one to leave this, to close it out on.
Yeah.
Let's move on to Dimension 20, Season 3, Episode 5, A New York Wedding. So what did you think of this?
Some things were revealed.
They were revealed.
I think one of the more surprising ones is the Kugrash revelation.
Mm-hmm.
I was just like, oh, I was expecting you to have always been a rat, sir. And I guess you were, just not a animal rat. You were a human rat.
Human rat. Yep.
Overall, like, I felt like this is another one of those, like, in between the action episodes. It's fun, and funny, and also gives us enough things happening that we still feel like we didn't lose out on anything.
Right. Yeah, I feel like it is revealing more than you might think it is revealing. At least on a
Which
first
is
watch.
possible.
Yeah. It's given a bit of the game plan away here, in ways that are like really fun on a rewatch to see. Yeah.
I'll be curious to like maybe discover some of that kind of stuff when I like after I've seen it all, like think back on it and be like, oh,
But like specifically in this episode, like Robert Moses is such a good antagonist.
yes,
He feels like the guy that could just be in here, but like he's kind of got some shady stuff going on. But like he is just so the way it feels like he feels like one of the like a customer I would have where it's like, oh yeah, it's kind of interesting to talk to him for like a minute or two, but like
right,
there's that loud part in your there's that loud voice in your brain that's like this guy sucks. It's such a Brennan move to like dial that home with like trickle down economics and Reagan, like to just really be like, hey, this guy he does suck. You think he sucks? He really sucks. And like the girl that's with them, with like the vampires.
yeah. So like that's the moment I knew he was probably like bad news. I'm like, you're hanging out with vampires. That's never a good thing. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, this guy is bad news.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just getting like the inner monologue of that girl that's kind of indentured to them. It's a kind of sex work, or it's
Yep.
colored in the same way that like sex work would be colored, but it's like bad sex work,
Yeah.
unhealthy, because like, and I think that is important in like this episode demonstrating that the difference between like there is good sex work and bad sex work,
Right.
and this
Yeah,
definitely
and
falls
and
into the
and
latter camp.
being coerced into doing such work is not good sex work.
No, no, like and
Because that's
she's
basically what they're doing is they're like unknowingly coercing her into it.
right. Well, I don't know if it's unknowingly because she seems very cognizant of what's going on. Like she feels like it feels to me like I know what's happening. Like even she says like other people have gone through this. I know people have gone through this. It's okay. I can just make it through the year and I'll be okay. But like so much of it is like riddled with like abuse language and like survivor language.
Yeah, that's fair.
So I think it's it isn't that she is unwilling or non-consensual in this. It's just that it's bad. Like at the very core of it is
There
bad, and
is
she knows it's bad. Uh,
mhm.
but it's pure
There's a
like
power imbalance going
mhm.
on that's like, yeah, that's bad news.
Even, yeah, and even just like,
But
oh, they're making her take drugs because like that's such a big part of it. Which like that part of it feels wildly unsafe. Both like taking good amount of like cocaine or heroin and then having your blood sucked. Like I'm not a doctor, but that all feels
I feel like
bad.
that that changes the ratio and makes you more intoxicated, I would think. Because if you
Yeah,
have less blood volume, so you
I
know
get.
how much you're taking and you're thinking, "Ooh, I'm doing this safely," but not in taking into account your blood is getting sucked.
Yeah.
The
Uh,
other the other thing that I was like, okay, this Robert guy's a really bad dude is that like he knows things about Pete that you're like, how the fuck do you know that? Like,
mhm,
sir, how do you know about that? That
yes.
means you're doing some shady shit. Like automatically, that means you're into some shady business because you somehow know things you shouldn't know.
The dance sequence they all have as they're like trying to compare notes is so funny.
Yeah.
Where like Pete's trying to dance with Kingston and be like, "Here, dude, come on, I have to talk to you about this." Like, it's
Oh my
so
god,
good.
it's so funny. I don't know what it is about this set of characters, but like I just thoroughly enjoy every single one of them. Like and their dynamics with each other is just hilarious.
Yeah, it's delightful, and I love how much of a mess Sophia is this wedding.
Dude, when she goes, you know, back sort of back home, she like sees the woman that she thinks her husband was cheating on her
Oh,
with. It's like she goes totally jealous ex-wife insane, and I love that about her because she's such a hot mess.
so.
Like such a hot mess. And I think I've said this before, but like she reminds me of Fran Fine from The Nanny. So like
Mhm.
I just like imagine like Fran doing something like this and it makes it 10 times funnier. And so like I truly think she's like I love all of the characters, but I truly think she's becoming one of my favorites just because she is Hot Mess Express and I love Hot Mess Express.
Oh yeah. I mean, we have talked before about the ways that I am very susceptible to a good Emily Oxford character because
Yes.
it's always good.
Yes.
Um, between this and Fig, like it's just delightful. Yeah, and like the way that Axford decides to like play certain scenes is just so good. Her trying to talk to the girl with the vampires at the reception,
Yep.
and trying very desperately to be like a girl's girl in that moment of like, hey, we gotta go.
Yeah.
I gotta I gotta figure out what the
Yeah.
situation here is.
Yeah. She's phenomenal. I enjoy her so much. And we get so much good content from her in this episode.
Yes, yes. Like her writing an entire essay in the wedding book.
Oh my god. I was like, you know what? Not gonna lie, but you're such a mood right now. Like, you're such a mood. I would totally have done something like that. I just don't know how to self edit myself when I write. So, like, I end up writing a novel.
Well, let's continue on to our next show, Batman: Cape Crusader, which is on Amazon Prime Video. Um, had 10 episodes. All 10 episodes are out, um, and this is executive produced by J.J. Abrams and Matt Reeves, who did the Robert Pattinson Batman movie, and also Bruce Timm,
Hmm.
who co-created Batman the Animated Series in the 90s. And this carries a
Nice.
lot of that DNA.
Yeah, I didn't watch more than the first episode, but I'm not a huge Batman fan, so I watched the first
Right.
episode to be like, I watched some of it. But I just don't care for Batman as a character. So
Mhm.
I like some
Yeah.
of the characters in the Batman universe, just not Batman himself.
For me, I've always been a fairly big Batman fan, and I think Cape Crusader is doing a lot of fun stuff within like that universe. Although I'm not sure that Hamish Linklater is the person I would have got to for a Batman voice to replace.
What do you mean you wouldn't want Hamish Linklater? Come on. Just kidding.
Well, it
Pretty
is
much anything else you want him for, yes, but not this.
yeah, well, and it is interesting casting because, as I said, you have Hamish Linklater as Batman and Bruce Wayne, but you also have Diedrich Bader voicing Harvey Dent, has
Hmm.
done Batman, who has voiced Batman for the last few years, a bunch of times. So it is funny the reversal here, and there are like a lot of really fun vocal performances in this. Aside from those two, you have John DiMaggio, our boy John DiMaggio, from Adventure Time and Futurama and a bunch of other things, voicing Harvey Bullock.
Hmm.
Christina Ricci voicing Catwoman. Our boy Tom Kenny from Adventure Time voicing Firefly, now called Firebug.
Hmm. Firebug.
Minnie Driver voicing the gender bent version of the Penguin. Oswalda Cobblepot.
Oswaldo, okay.
Yeah, Oswalda.
Interesting.
Yes. So yeah, just like a lot of really fun vocal performances here. Um, takes again like a lot of the DNA of Batman the animated series and kind of doubles down a little bit more, or like goes a little bit harder on like the actual noir 40s vibe of it, um, which Batman the animated
Hmm.
series already had a lot of to begin with. Um, but this really does feel like Batman, but like if it was in the 40s, really, instead of just being like where like the anime Batman the anime series was like 40s, but kind of in like a steampunk kind of way, where it's
Yeah,
like yeah, it's the 40s, but it's also with some like more anachronistic technology. And this is like oh no, this is like 40s noir, and that
gotcha. Yep.
playing through a lot in these episodes. I like a lot of the newer villains here. You have like uh, Onomatopoeia, who feels like he would be a very bad villain in most cases because he's a character who just like says the action before he does the action, so like bam pow crack, kind of thing. Um,
Right.
it's like it really feels like you're telling what you're about to do before you do it. But okay. Um, Nocturna, voiced by McKenna Grace, who's a very fun, basically playing a vampire. You know, you have Catwoman, you have the Penguin, you have Two Face, and you have Harley Quinn, voiced by Jimmy Chung, who played Mulan in Once Upon a Time,
Okay.
and
Yep.
she does like a nice take on Harley Quinn, both like that voice, and it's a really good interpretation of Harley Quinn, without having to center the Joker in her story.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, without having it seem like the Joker corrupted her. Instead, here it is a more complicated story that I found rather compelling. Her outfit is more toned down, but still equally as bombastic as Harley Quinn's traditional like gesture outfit is. It allows a lot of like agency for Harley Quinn that still like allows for the Joker to come in and kind of twist her more, but she is still like at her core a kind of twisted
Twisted.
individual. Yeah, while also still maintaining like a certain queerness in her character too, where she goes on a date with Renee Montoya, which is great. I like a lot of,
Nice.
which kind of brings me to like the designs of the characters. I like a lot, especially the female characters who are allowed to be just like not drawn like in like the slim way that like a lot of female characters in animation are drawn. You know, they are allowed to
Mm-hmm.
take up a little bit more space. They're allowed to be a little bit bigger. They're allowed to be a little broader, just physically. So I really like that. I like and overall I like the designs of a lot of the characters here. Yeah, it's really fun. It does feel like just like kind of slipping back into a world that you already know really well if you've watched like a lot of Batman the animated series. It's so much of that vibe, but still like enough tweaks on it to be like its own thing. Yeah, I really like this. One final thing. There is an episode towards the end of the season where they introduce like I think like 4 or 5 different Robins like as kids, and it's kind of just like one after the other in an episode, and it is so deep. I find that so deeply funny because it's just like Dick and then Jason and Cassandra and Carrie, and it's like, oh my god, there's so many Robins in this episode. Are we just collecting them all at once? And also, just to do Jason Todd as a Robin in general is kind of delightful. Let's move on to our next show, Orphan Black Echoes. As we're recording this, 6 episodes are out. I've watched. I'm up to the 5th episode. Mads, you've watched 3 episodes now.
I have watched 3 of the episodes, yes.
Cool. So I want to get to what I think about it a little bit. But first, tell me what you think of these first 3 episodes.
I'm very intrigued. I want to know more about, where Jules and Lucy come from, why these mysterious people are after them, and why the one woman said to the doctor, well, if you want her to be safe, you have to find her before us. Like, will she be successful? Like, you know what I mean? Like, those kinds of things. This makes it a very intriguing show. I like shows that make me have to sit there and think about what's being presented and also processing what's not being said, but is being shown through either the character's movements or from things in the background or things on a computer screen, stuff like that. Like, I like when shows make you work for it. On a little side note, it was nice to see that Lucy, has created this like family unit with that man and his daughter. So I love seeing American Sign Language done, and them also not always trying to speak while signing, because a lot of shows that introduce ASL into a show with a deaf character, they're like, oh, well, the other people have to speak so that the audience knows what's being said. No, you can just caption it. That's perfectly fine. It's not natural for people who are signing to also speak while they sign, especially people that are signing to deaf people, because obviously why would you be, it was one of those things about the show Switched at Birth that kind of like frustrated me, was that they were like talking and signing, and I'm like, 2 different parts of your brain are being used right now. Like, you're not giving your all to both, or one, but anyways, that's something I really appreciated. And the other thing, which is just one of those things that like, I saw him on something else when he was super, super young, and now I'm like, you have really grown up. Avon Jogi, I think is how you say his name, but he plays the father of Charlie. I forget his character's name, but he plays Charlie's father, and I saw him back in the day on a Disney show. I forget which one it was, when he was like a young teen, and I was just like, you have grown up so much. You look different. But no, I'm really enjoying myself. I'm really rooting for Jules and Lucy to find out the truth that they so deserve to know. I feel really bad for Jules because like, she's a teenager. Being a teen is hard enough, and then to find out that you're a clone and like you don't have a really have a past and that people around you are lying to your face. Like that's got to be so unnerving for her. I will say I love her foster brother Wes. He's epic. I love him.
Yeah, so episode 5 kind of puts a lot of its cards on the table.
Hmm.
And I think that's really the point that I want to talk about with Orphan with Echoes, because I think a big stumbling block that I've had with the show is, why would I felt that it had to really answer the question of, why would someone who has kind of seen the horrors of cloning up close and personal, where like her mom was a clone and all her aunts are clones, because she was Tatiana Maslany's daughter in the show, and original recipe Orphan Black. Why would she engage in experiments like this? And the answer that episode 5 provides, of like, it was a move of desperation in a really human and knowable way. I think it came away with something that was really heartbreaking and sad, and really puts into perspective a lot of like things that have happened earlier on in the show that make it much more heartbreaking. Make a lot of things much more heartbreaking and sad when you really think about it.
Gotcha.
It is essentially an entire flashback episode where you see the younger version of Kira, played by August Winter, who is really good at kind of capturing certain vibes throughout that, and then like Keely Hawes picking up the rest of the episode. And yeah, it's deeply deeply upsetting. I think the entire episode is rather upsetting once you realize like what point they're leading you to. It kind of makes the show for me. For a show that like I had been kind of struggling with for like the last few episodes, of like, what are we doing here? What is the point? What is the idea that we're dealing with here? And this kind of puts it all into perspective in a really nice way.
Oh, that's good.
I do want to say episode 2 with Felix, who was the character from Orphan Black, is absurd and ridiculous. It's some of the most ridiculous facial work that I think I've ever seen for a character who is supposed to look like.
Mm-hmm.
This is the other part of the show that bugs me. It's like, I don't understand like the timeline of the show, because it's supposed to be like 40 years post like Orphan Black, and here's Felix, a guy who was like in his 20s and now he's like supposed to be, I guess, in his 60s in Echoes, and it's like, this looks absurd. This looks very silly. Someone described his beard as like, it looks like a cat was trying to hide and then died on his face. It just looks really weird, and it's
okay, that guy. Okay,
yeah.
I was like Felix. Okay, the guy that showed up with the glasses and the facial hair. Okay.
Yeah, and it's made. I think for me, it's made a little worse because he was such a twink.
Yeah, I'm seeing pictures. I'm looking at Google right now, and it's like showing me pictures of Felix Dawkins from Orphan Black, and I'm like, oh, you were a little goth twink. That's cute.
I literally when he
What
came
happened?
when he came on screen, I audibly screamed, "What did they do to my twink?"
Facts. I will say I did enjoy him walking in and just saying, "Hello, monkey," and I'm just like, "Oh, okay." Now I'm really excited to meet Felix and Orphan in Black. So.
Oh yeah, I really like Kristen Ritter on the show.
She does a great job.
She does really great. Like, I think she has a more vulnerable role that I think we're like familiar with from like, Jessica Jones or Don't Trust the Bee. Where like there's an emotionality that I think she's working with a little stronger than some of her other stuff. that's just like more on the surface.
Yeah.
And also Amanda Fix, who plays
Oh,
Jules, I
definitely.
really like. Who was also on High School, a show I deeply love. Who was also great there, but it's
Yes,
also very good here.
like when we meet Jules, I'm like, oh, this is going to be interesting. Like I immediately was drawn to this character. She had a bit of attitude to her that I'm like, oh no, she's hurting. Like she's not really a mean, nasty person. She's just got some trauma under the surface she's got to deal with. And so I was like, oh, I like her. And then she reveals what's in her bathroom, and I'm like, I like you even more, you drug dealing little piece of shit. Like, I love you. I love you so much.
Right, Jules. I think I like
Piece of
the
shit said very affectionately.
right. I think I like the performance of Jules more than I like the actual writing of Jules. Because like even to your point, it's like okay, the the orphan character with a with an attitude issue and selling drugs at school. Okay, I've seen a lot of this before. I'm waiting to be wowed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, please wow me. And the wowing is more of the performance than I think anything that they're
Oh,
necessarily doing
absolutely.
with
Yeah,
that
the
character.
execution makes it, because like if you just look at it on paper, you're like, okay, and
Right.
but
Yeah.
execution wise, you're like, oh no, I like this character.
Mm-hmm.
That scene with Jules and her foster parents where they're like telling her she has to take this drug. The minute they said that, I was like, "Oh no, they're trying to like do some shady shit to you. Like don't take that drug, like don't take that pill." And like you can tell that she kind of like has caught on to that vibe. And I just love the defiance that's on her face as she puts it in her mouth and then like pretends like she swallows it, but like doesn't like fully swallow it because she's easily able to barf it up like a few minutes later in her bathroom. But
Right.
it's like that girl is just like, fuck you people. I don't trust you. And I want you to know that I don't trust you.
Yeah. I 100% would not have taken that pill. Like, there's no force on this earth that could have made me take that pill in that moment.
Right. I'm like, girl, don't take that pill. That is not a safe pill. That is not what they say it is.
Even if their hearts were in the right place, there's a vindictive, petty part of me that would just not take that pill.
Especially because her dad, quote unquote dad, is such a slimy piece of shit kind of character. Like, I don't like him. From the moment we meet him, I'm like, I don't like you and I don't trust you.
He's such a douche.
He's like, you should call me dad. And she's just like, fuck you.
Fuck you. I am excited for you to get to episode 5 to kind of see how everything plays out for you.
Oh, and I will probably be screaming at you, so you'll know.
So let's continue on to The Bear, closing out our coverage of season 3. So here's the thing. I just want to be honest with everyone here. I sat down to watch season 3 today to finish it out. And I think there's a certain point with the show where you have to say, I'm not vibing with this, and I'm just not going to. Because there's
Yep.
nothing demanding that any of us watch a show. So
right. There's no gun to your head. You don't have
I'm
to
just
watch
saying I'm kind of I'm wiping my hands and I'm going, I don't need to do this year. Next year I will reconsider,
Yeah.
but now I've watched what I've watched.
Yeah, so I didn't watch past episode 8. I honestly kept going because I'm like, I want to see his sister's baby. That's literally the only thing I was like, I was curious how that was going to play out because I had a feeling the show was going to do something dramatic, and they did. And I was like, all right, I want to see this play out, but I don't give a shit about anything else because everything else is moving at such a snail's pace that I feel like nothing's happening. Um, but I will say that episode was very good because they once again utilized the mother, aka Jamie Lee Curtis, and it was great. And we love a good cameo, but it doesn't save anything about the season. It really doesn't. It it doesn't save the season. It just is like, okay, this was nice. Where was this like 6 episodes ago when I stopped caring about this season?
Well, and also there are some bad cameos.
Oh, definitely.
Like John Cena in episode 5 is bad. Just has no business being in this world.
Yeah, but so I read somebody's recap and they made a comment where they're like, I want them to do a spin-off show about that family and those brothers and those cousins because like they're at this point they're more interesting than Carmi and his whatever BS he's pulling. And it's just like, you know what? You're not wrong. The cameos can't even save it. Like that's the thing. Like anytime there's this many cameos in something that's not like a big blockbuster movie, so to speak, I feel like they're trying to cover up things that are not so great. And I'm like, well, yep, this season has been really crappy and they're using all these cameos to make us care, and it's like, no, the writing's still not that great. So
What of the Bear I watched felt like a chore.
yeah, it really was.
So I really want to stop talking about the Bear now because we've been doing this for like a month.
Yeah. Moving on.
Yes, let's move on to Evil, season 4, episode 11. Well, what I think is interesting is this episode is titled "Fear of the Future," whereas the rest of season 4 have been "How to," have all been like the titles have all been "How to blank, how to blank,"
and they've had that sequence of the book, right?
Yes.
And this one, like the title's presented like a horror movie title, and I was like, that's interesting.
I don't know what that means. Whether this is like a kind of thematic function or if these episodes have been tacked on to season 4. It feels so much like a penultimate episode, though. I was a little bit shocked to be like, oh, there's still 3 episodes of this season, because this feels like an endpoint.
Yeah, like a lot of things happen and shift, and it's just like, okay. Like I was just like, oh, we still have more episodes. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, and the show introduces a lot.
Felt like the Andy reveal in this episode was, I don't know, I didn't feel it. But then again, I've never felt anything with Andy, so I kind of was just like, oh, is this how we're getting rid of him? Is this the official way we're getting rid of him? Because I'm fine with that, like whatever. But poor Kristen, like, why does this have to happen to Kristen?
Right, like I tweeted, if Andy wasn't already a character that monumentally sucked, I would be saying that he's being character assassinated.
Right, exactly. I'm like, no, I don't care. just like,
but there's a lot in this episode that, like, on first glance is like, oh, this is show breaking. Like the assessors program getting shut down. Well, that's the show. That's the very essence of the show. Right. Someone from the future. Well, that's show breaking. The girl's almost getting poisoned. Like that feels show breaking. So like a lot of this is like, oh, I don't know where we go from here.
Right.
Like even if we had a 5th and a 6th season, I'd be like, where do we? What do you do past this?
Right, because speaking of someone from the future, Charmed did that, but they did it towards the end of the series, and after that you're like, okay, that was something that happened.
Right, and it helps that it helps to alleviate some like, oh, this is show breakingness of like by Ellie being psychotic and not actually from the future. So it's like, oh, okay, good.
Right. Yeah. Right. So we got that, and it was just like we got to that point, and I was like, okay, so it's good to know she's not from the future, because that was like, what?
Right, like
that was very what?
The show actually cannot have one of the daughters coming back in time through the particle accelerator to warn them of events, because the show can't recover from that.
Right.
The show cannot put its foot so firmly in the weird. You know, it can tease and kind of allude to it and give versions of it, or like let them get a glimpse of it. But Kristen at no point can believe that the supernatural exists. You know,
Right.
the show doesn't work if Kristen legitimately thinks that there is demons and ghosts and spirits and what have you. You know, like the show ceases to function.
Exactly, because she is the most cynical of the. I feel like she's one of the more cynical of them. But the other, I loved that, like, there was this moment where Laura took a picture of the license plate, and like you could see the relief enter Kristen's mind, because all of a sudden it's no longer, oh, this is possible that this person is from the future. She's suddenly like, nope, I have an answer. I
Right.
have an answer, and there's a logical explanation. I can find who this person really is. They can't hide. And like, that's when I was like, okay, good. We're not ruining the central thematic element of this show, that Kristen doesn't believe in this stuff.
Also, I'm I'm not a quantum physicist by any stretch of the imagination. I don't think a particle accelerator can do what is being suggested it can do. Like, I don't believe that it can actually make a wormhole to go back in time with. Again, not a, I can not confirm nor deny that that is possible, but it doesn't seem like it's possible.
Well, remember, the Flash started off with the particle accelerator not working properly and giving him his powers. Technically,
We don't have time to go down this.
I'm just saying. I'm
I
just
don't feel
saying
that
there
we
are
have
things
time.
that
I don't
particle
feel like we have
accelerators
time.
can do. I don't know. I don't know if wormhole is one of them.
I admit to not knowing what a
Not
particle accelerator can or cannot do, but
It can. Here, I will Google it to give you an actual answer. A particle accelerator is a machine that uses electromagnetic fields to propel charged particles to very high speeds and energies and contain them in well defined beams. Yeah, I don't know enough about physics to know like if that can make other things happen, but I'm just saying I remember particle accelerator being the cause of Barry Allen's powers in The Flash, which does not tell us whether or not a wormhole character going through a wormhole can happen on a particle accelerator. Oh, wait. Google says some say that a particle accelerator could create a wormhole by focusing enough energy to pull apart the fabric of space-time. I feel like that's a stretch.
like okay, but could create a wormhole like Stargate create a wormhole or create a wormhole like Sliders?
Where people can walk through.
Yes. Anyway, doesn't matter.
Who knows? Doesn't matter. Not important.
Not important.
I will say I love seeing Leland scared shitless. Like, he's so terrified.
Also, I love the Leland side of this episode where it's just like we stepped into like the good wife for a second.
Yeah, we're suddenly in a courthouse. Okay, whatever. I guess that's important.
Yeah, like it's just like the good wife side of those episodes where it's like you got a kooky lawyer and a crazy client and celebrity appearance as a judge, and it's like, oh, okay. The only thing that's missing is Alicia Florrick in this episode, and it would just be a good wife episode. Uh,
Oh, do you think they're going to end up making David Kristen a thing by the end of the series?
I mean, I would imagine it's certainly being teased enough.
I know, like I feel like this season has really amped it up. But I was like, is that just them being like, well, it's the last season, we'll just really give you guys what you want so that you can imagine, whatever, or are they really going to give it to us? I'm hoping they'll give it to us.
Yeah.
Not that I'm saying I 100% ship it, but I can see people that ship it.
Right. Well, like even just within the framework of the show. Like, if this isn't the thing you're building to, then I don't really know what you imagined you were doing,
Yeah.
But also, I don't know what the next 3 episodes are going to be, Like what does this show look like as it tries to wrap itself up? No idea.
And it's been so consistently good that I'm like, please don't let us down. Like, you know what I mean? I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
please don't fumble the pass in the final 3 minutes of the game.
Right. So that's it for this week. Next week we're going to be fumbling a little bit to pad out our lineup. If you all have any suggestions, be sure to send them our way. But until then, Mads, where can we find you online?
On Twitter and Instagram, you can find me at DorothyNYC89. And on Tumblr, you can find me at MadsWorld15.
And you can find me on Twitter at the Drew Koenig and everywhere else at Drew Koenig. You can follow the podcast on all social media platforms at Not on TV Podcasts. And be sure to email us at notonatvpodcast@gmail.com. Be sure to go to our link tree for all of our socials at linktree.com/notonatvpodcast. We'll have our Twitter and Instagram and Tumblr and yada yada yada, along with our Discord, where you can join and talk to us every day about TV shows that you're watching and any news that is happening. And we're also doing live watches of the X-Files throughout the week, every Tuesdays and Friday. Matt, you'll like this. Next week we are doing an episode entitled Jersey Devil.
Ah, nice. I need to get caught up so that I can be watching with you guys.
You can find more episodes of our podcast at Apple and Spotify, along with YouTube. Be sure to leave us a review and subscribe. And also find our full backlog at libsyn.com/notanotherTVpodcasts. Until next week, please remember, don't go in the ocean. It's none of your business. Goodbye.